Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Siouxland Senior Planning Radio Show. Today, we're going to finish up the conversation we started last week about transfers, Medicaid, the look-back period, and today specifically, we're going to talk about the penalty period. Remember from last week that we spent some time talking about what is the look-back period. And just to refresh your memory, look-back period means the period beginning on the first day of the month in which you submit a Medicaid application for nursing home benefits and going back 5 years to determine how much you've given away or transferred in that time. And we total up that amount and figure out how much of a penalty, or rather, how much of a waiting period Medicaid is going to impose on you for kind of restricting when you are allowed to receive Medicaid benefits. The penalty period is calculated by determining the average cost of care in the state. And that number is set on an annual basis. So we just reset the number for 2023 and 2024. The number now is $8,581.61 for a month, and $282.29 for a day, a single day of care. The average cost is $282 in Iowa. So to determine the penalty period, we are going to take the total amount of gifting over the last 5 years. We're going to divide it by the average. So in the event that you had given away $85,816.10 in gifts, we would take that amount and we would divide it by the average cost of care per month. So that amount divided by $8,581.61 gives us a penalty period of exactly 10 months. But if you didn't have a precise amount, we would also figure out the number of days. So if you had given away a number that wasn't quite as round for doing the math, we would be looking at a certain number of months and a certain number of days. We don't use decimals or fractions. So if you had given away $2,822.90, we would divide that amount by the 8,500 number we just talked about, and you'd get a number that was some decimal, some fraction of a full month. Well, instead of that, we will take the number and divide it by the daily average, which gives us a 10-day penalty period. So you applied on the first of the month. You have to wait 10 days before the Medicaid eligibility will kick in. And after that, you can be covered by Medicaid for your long-term care expenses. We use the gifting period, the gifting rules, the penalty period, the look-back period to inform us as we're making plans ahead of time, especially when we're dealing with people's family farms or with a family business, assets that are important to families to keep going from one generation to the next. Or we also deal with it when we get into situations where someone has been not doing anything wrong, just giving assets to their kids or grandkids every so often, and all of a sudden we have a medical crisis. We talked last time about this presumption, and so the penalty period will get calculated, and if you disagree with Medicaid that there's a penalty or that there should be a penalty, the process essentially allows you to appeal that decision and try to make your case that the penalty period should be waived, because the gifts you made were not made to obtain Medicaid coverage. They were made because you simply care for your family. That argument, that case becomes easier to make the further ahead of time those gifts happen. If there's a pattern of giving, like giving to church or birthday gifts and Christmas gifts, things like that, those patterns will often weigh in your favor in terms of making that appeal. But the problem is, in order to even get them to consider that, the first step is getting a denial, or essentially having them tell you, well, you're eligible, but you gave your money away, so we're going to penalize you for that. And so it's just important not to get too afraid of the terminology. When you see those words like penalty, that sounds very scary. Denial can sound very scary, and that's not the end of the story. And that's how we worry about or think about Medicaid eligibility, specifically around the look-back period and the penalty period. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.